Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've got one of those stories sent to me by almost everybody, and it applies to Google and YouTube. And so, of course, here we are, literally. So I'm going to go with the version of the story from the New York Post, but you can literally find this story anywhere you want to find it by just typing in the phrase, I don't know, Russia, Google, fine. And you were talking about the noun, because Russia has levied a fine against Google for allegedly blocking Kremlin propaganda. And what they're saying that they want Google to pay is $20.5 decillion. Now, decillion is actually a number. And I remembered seeing a table of numbers in an encyclopedia when I was a little kid going, that's kind of cool because, you got billion and then trillion and then quadrillion and quintillion and decillion is up there. And it's basically one followed by a lot of zeros. And in fact, the number is larger than the entire world's GDP, gross domestic product. It's larger than the entire thing. So here's the situation. A Russian court has ordered Google to pay a fine of more than the entire world's GDP, and there's an additional $1 million penalty daily after the tech giant allegedly barred pro-Moscow propaganda channels on YouTube. The absurd amount, and that's the New York Post word, not mine, just in case you're watching over there, would be written as a 20 followed by 33 zeros, 33, which far eclipses Google's valuation, which stands at about $2 trillion and is akin to the outrageous ransom demands made by Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers movie franchise. Remember, he's not quite sure how inflation has worked, so he wants $1 million. Sir, that's okay. I want a gazillion dollars. It's like, okay. I don't think gazillion's on the list, though. Hang on. We'll get there. The penalty was first reported by Russia's RBC state news agency, but of course, if you were watching YouTube, you wouldn't have seen it. It was issued as a result of an initial $1 million fine levied against the company 4 years ago for banning some YouTube channels, Tsargrad and RIA Fan. Russian courts had warned at the time the amount would double every day, and that's how it got so out of control. So in other words, it's not like you get a decillion-dollar fine for each and every violation. No. It was a fine that doubled and doubled and doubled. So, and it would double until YouTube restored the accounts and paid the balance. So just they can't fix it now unless they cough up the money. So Google shut down its Russian division in 2022. So that's part of the issue here. Is that Google says, look, we don't even operate there anymore. And so they actually had declared bankruptcy for their local subsidiary. And so they say, look, the local subsidiary is closed. We're out. We don't do business there anymore. The company also closed its Google AdSense in Russia, which means that local content creators there no longer are able to receive monetization. So I'm sorry if there's a Russian equivalent of me over there. There very well could be. And some guy, has got a Lehto's Law or something. And he sits in front of a wall of knickknacks and talks about the legal issues. I don't know. But Google and its YouTube services are still accessible to Russians because the internet does that. With the legal battle taking a turn in August when Moscow seized more than $100 million from Google's bankrupt entity, and that was reported by The Telegraph. So Google is fighting efforts now by Russian broadcasters seeking to enforce the fines in other countries. So Russia said, look, we got this judgment against you for $20.5 decillion, and until you pay that, we're going to chase you down and try to collect. And so they're trying to collect in other countries such as Turkey, South Africa, and Serbia. Now, the company itself, Google, appeared unfazed by Russia's demands in its latest earnings reports published Tuesday night, so just a couple nights ago. And they said, we do not believe these ongoing legal matters will have a material adverse effect. And the news appears to have had almost no impact, if any at all, on Google's parent company, Alphabet, which saw its stocks rise by more than 5% on Wednesday morning. So 20.5, 0.5 is important, by the way, $20.5 decillion. And by the way, we have to discuss this for my British friends. We have to discuss this, how you guys use a word differently than we do when it comes to numbers. And I've heard this before, but it's never actually caused a problem for me. But someday it might. There might be a time where it's extremely important that I convey a concept to somebody who's got the British numbering system in their head, and I refer to something as being a billion. And it turns out that sometimes the British use the word billion to describe a trillion. At least that's what we call a trillion. But then they get kind of offset as they go down the list. So in case you're curious, we have a billion, which of course is a one with a whole bunch of zeros after it. Add 3 more zeros, it's a trillion. 3 more is quadrillion, then quintillion, then sextillion, then septillion, octillion, nonillion, and then decillion. Believe it or not, the next one is undecillion. So 36 undecillion would be 1,000 times more than a decillion. Then there's duodecillion, which of course is greater than undecillion. Then there's tridecillion or tredecillion. And then there's a bunch of others. And it goes up to the ones that are silly, such as Google and Googleplex. And I can say that because Google here is spelled differently. The number is Googol. And then Googleplex, of course, is 10 to the power of Google. So you've got a couple battles going on here, one of which is the battle over trying to get Google to pay money, a lot of money, when Google itself is a homonym for a gigantic number. But the real point is that somebody, and I apologize for not saying who because I can't remember who it was. I got so many people who recommended this to me. But Steve, you understand that, like for instance, in our Constitution, we've got an amendment that says that you cannot levy, an outrageous fine against somebody. And you can actually say a fine is too harsh and take that up on appeal. And so here it's simply a monetary fine against a company. And they, if we were to actually argue this in an American court, would say, well, they could have paid it back when it was reasonable. It's just that it keeps doubling and doubling and doubling. But we don't have that, as far as I know, in any American legal system setting where a fine doubles or multiplies over time. They'll gain interest, and there might be a per day fine that stacks on top, but that's addition, not multiplication. So $20.5 decillion, which is more than the entire world's GDP. Russia has fined Google for allegedly blocking Kremlin propaganda on their platform. We'll see if they pay it. Trocon and everybody else has sent that. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Did you try turning it off and on again?